What's going on, everyone? Special shout out to my textbook squad, following all my subscribers out there, everyone listening to the podcast and the podcasts that I've created before. I appreciate y'all from the bottom of my heart. Y'all are very important to me. And we had a very eventful week 4 in the NFL, a pretty eventful week 5 in college football as well. It's October, so you know what that means. We're going to have that full slate of all sports where we're going to have college football. Then we're going to have NBA basketball coming up. MLB is in the postseason. Then NFL. College, as I've already mentioned. So if you're a sports fan in general, October's and from now on, your weekends are going to be filled. Heck, your weekdays might even be filled. So let's just jump right into this episode. Of course, as y'all know, that's textbook. So as I mentioned, it was a pretty eventful week 4 in the NFL. And I'll start off with the last football game we just witnessed. Seattle Seahawks, New York Giants. Wasn't even a contest until about, I want to say the second half. I think it was the third quarter. At that point in time, it was either, if my memory's correct, a 14-6 or a 14-3 ball game. And the Giants are in the red zone at their own 10-yard line. Daniel Jones throws a pick 6 to the rookie Devon Witherspoon. He takes it 97 yards to the house. He also had a breakout game. 2 sacks, a pick 6. Really phenomenal football game to showcase on a huge stage, primetime, his talents. On that specific play with Daniel Jones, I'll talk about it a little bit. It looks like they're running. You got 3 receivers out to his left. The inside slot receiver, Darren Waller, is looking like he's running a corner route to the pylon. The 2 receivers to the left of Darren Waller look like they're both running in routes, just trying to make it muddy for the cornerback and the inside of that defense to get Waller out to the corner. Waller's open to the corner. Why Daniel Jones doesn't see him, I don't know. Maybe that's because it's the state of the offensive line, and he's not feeling very confident to just hang in there for a hitch longer in a couple of seconds. Throws it, and even if he misses Waller, you hate to see that. But when you miss like that and you decide to go to a different option, you have to be right and you have to be on target. He's not on target, way off. And I could spend all day talking about how the Seahawks defense absolutely dominated the New York Giants. It seemed like every time the Seattle Seahawks defense lined up across the New York Giants offense, in the words of Shaq, it was like a barbecue chicken alert. They were feasting. They had 11 sacks in that game. Every play, Daniel Jones was getting pressured. So I could talk all about the Seahawks. They're second in the NFC West. They're 3-1. How dominant that they looked. But in the world of sports and sports journalism, broadcasting, it's always about the biggest story. So the New York Giants this week, they're the biggest story. And the biggest story within the Giants, who are the biggest story, is the quarterback. 4 years, $160 million. This is a New York Giants team that the year before went to the playoffs, actually won a playoff football game, made it to the divisional round. So here's the 3 things about the New York Giants, because everyone, you see the success that they had last year, and you think, okay, well, if we're putting this on a trajectory, it can only get up and up and up. But the truth about the New York Giants, it's 3 things. 1, Saquon Barkley is the engine of this team, and all the while he is the engine of this football team, he's a running back that's usually at the time period and at the age where a lot of running backs start to decline. To make things worse for Saquon Barkley, he doesn't have a good offensive line. The offensive line for the New York Giants is absolutely Terrible. Along that offensive line, Andrew Thomas, their left tackle, one of the top left tackles in the league, he anchors that offensive line. Evan Neal, who they spent the first round draft pick on, he's looked like a bust so far. The second thing about the New York Giants, they overpaid and they panicked at the QB spot. You see, when you're a general manager or you're someone at a position of leadership, the worst thing you can do is panic. It didn't look like, as the deadline was approaching, that the Giants were going to pay Daniel Jones the type of money he wanted. Now, Daniel Jones, like any player, I'm not going to, if they want to go get their money and they got their money, despite how good they are on the football field, that's fine. Because that's your personal business. For anyone else to judge is just wrong. But for us, for the football team, it's the most expensive mistake that the Giants have had. So you overpaid. Thirdly, you overachieved last year. Brian Daboll, who I view as a good football coach. Okay, we considered that he took this roster, although there's a lot of new faces and so on, but the core of this roster is still there. So he took this roster to the playoffs, a divisional playoff game. Now with the same roster, it hasn't worked out. But you look at where Daboll's been in the past, he's also had really good success. Now, yeah, he's been at a lot of places, and the knock on that as well, he's been at numerous coaching spots, coaching gigs. So while he's had success, you can't necessarily keep him for the long term. That's fine. But the team overall overpaid. They just overachieved. They overpaid. They overachieved. Saquon's their best football player. He's the engine of this team. But he's also entering that time of his career where a lot of running backs start to decline. The Giants are in a full rebuild. You went to the playoffs, fantastic. But you're going into a full rebuild, in my opinion. The one plus for the Giants fans in the Daniel Jones contract is that in 2025 there's a potential out. Now the dead cap, if chosen, is going to be $22 million. I'm sure just about right now, if you were to poll or survey Giants fans, they would take that. But they'd want it a lot sooner. The only problem is you just paid this quarterback, you just paid your guy, now you have to face the dead cap. And it's an expensive contract. That's all I have to say about the Giants. So if we're taking things away, the three things about the Giants, summed up. Barkley's the engine of this team. He's also at that period where guys at his position start to decline. Secondly, they overpaid and panicked at the quarterback spot. Thirdly, they overachieved last year. So let me know. That's Textbook Sports Squad. All my listeners, those of y'all listening to this podcast, how can the New York Giants fix this? And do they have to hit the reset button? Who's also to blame? Are we going to be giving a lot of the blame to Daniel Jones? Because it looks like he's checked out. Brian Daboll tried to talk to him on the sidelines. The ESPN broadcast caught it. Throws the tablet down. Things could not go any worse for the New York Giants. So do they have to hit the reset button? What do you do with Daniel Jones' contract? Love to hear it. I appreciate your support and your participation in this podcast. So let me know in the comments. So had it not been for the Giants Monday Night Football nightmare, this next story or this next segment would have been the top story, and that is Zach Wilson and Justin Fields had career days for their football team. The only negative with their career days was that it resulted in a loss. Now, we can talk all a day about QB wins. Is it a stat? Is it not a stat? Obviously, some teams value it. Here's the thing. To take away, I'll start with the New York Jets for them to take away. This is a defense that, in my opinion, has the best, strongest mental fortitude to be able to know that our quarterback necessarily might not get the job done, but to still go out there every single week and keep the games close, especially when you're playing up against really good offenses. They've had to deal with the Buffalo Bills, Dallas. Then they've also had to deal with the Kansas City Chiefs just this last game. They won one of those games and lost the other two. But the other one, specifically the Chiefs game, was really close. Had it not been for, I hate to say it, but for a couple missed calls, especially on that Sauce Gardner holding, who knows where this game goes? Can Zach Wilson lead them? Can he lead a comeback? And listen, this is before Aaron Rodgers trade. Zach Wilson came off looking kind of smug, like really arrogant, had a high ego, didn't care. He just did whatever, slung the football, didn't have any care or any self-awareness. But since the Jets trading for Aaron Rodgers, the talk around the organization was that Aaron Rodgers is really showing Zach Wilson how to do things the right way, showing and being that mentor and leader for him. In my opinion, it's paid off because he had a career day. He was being decisive with where he wanted to go with the football, being confident, getting to the top of his drop, maybe taking one hit or two, going to his next read. That touchdown to Lazard, back shoulder. Lots of back shoulder throws, so he felt confident in himself. And if you're the New York Jets and you're that team, you lost. I don't believe in moral losses, but there's some teams that just have to take moral losses. You feel good about yourself and you say, okay, we're going up next week against a Denver defense. They let Justin Fields, who I'll talk about after this, they let Justin Fields have a career day. Can we have that same type of success with Zach Wilson, knowing that our offensive coordinator was Denver's head coach last year? We know what Sean Payton said about the Denver head coaching production last year, saying it was one of the worst in NFL history. So is our offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, going to come out guns a-blazing, really hot? You expect him to. If that's the case, going up against a Denver defense that's terrible, there's a lot of positive things that the Jets can build. And I'm going to say the chances of Zach Wilson repeating what he did last week are about, I want to say 62 to 66%. Now, for Justin Fields, had a career day. Was it an 81% completion percentage? I believe. He did throw for his first ever 300-yard game. He had 4 passing touchdowns, I think, and it wasn't just enough. They had a 28-7 lead, but if you've watched a lot of Chicago Bears football games, you knew the defense and that defensive line. They cannot they cannot stop a nosebleed. They were going to give up points. Denver did. They got back into the game. But not only the Chicago Bears defense was giving up points, it was a lot of turnovers. The turnover on Justin Fields. Watching the broadcast, it looked like that second turnover to seal the game doesn't put it at the right spot. He probably should put it on Cole Kmet's right shoulder, I think. Instead, he puts it on the left, leads him inside. DB intercepts it. Now, for the fumble, I'm not going to blame Justin Fields. He's going off of play action. They leave the backside edge or linebacker unblocked. The type of time, and you see the game speed. You saw it on the broadcast. Fields is turning. As soon as he turns and looks over his left shoulder, there's already a defender there. He tries to, looks like, get rid of the ball, just toss it into the dirt. Doesn't have enough time. A lot of people said, well, in that scenario, he should just take a sack. Yeah, that's easy to say with hindsight, and it's also very difficult when as soon as you're turning over your shoulder, you're seeing someone and they're right there, and you have to make that split decision within milliseconds of what you're going to do. Again, same with Zach Wilson. It was a positive game for Justin Fields. He did have his fair share of turnovers. They did lose the football game. But to me, it's a lot goes on that coaching staff. So the Chicago Bears, it was a tie game. It's 4th and 1. And I agree with the 4th and 1 call. But you run in with Khalil Herbert, then your right tackle doesn't make the block. He leaves the guy to go and make the play. But here's the thing that really ticks people off about that 4th and 1 call. Is Justin Fields is having his best day as a pro, and you decide to take the ball out of his hands. Now, my memory might be spotty. It looks like the defense was playing man. Maybe they had a safety over top. I think Chicago had a receiver to the right and 2 wide receivers to the left. Darnell Mooney on slot fades. He's batting 1,000. Why you don't go to that call and why you decide to take the ball out of Justin Fields' hands really is baffling everyone. So it's about the coaching staff. Now, there's reports that if this coaching staff loses tomorrow's game against the Washington Commanders, they're out. That's a good time to fire the coach just because it's whenever you play a Thursday night football game, it's kind of like a mini bye. Last year when Chicago had that Thursday night football game against the Commanders, then the offense started to get going. But I don't think you can have any faith. My faith in that offensive coordinator, all the coaching that's on there with the Chicago Bears, every coach, is about 25 to 28% confidence that they can get this thing right. Especially considering, and this is my last point, talking about Chicago. This is a defensive-minded head coach. They don't have the pieces on the defensive line, but they do have some pieces in the secondary and with the linebackers. Usually defensive-minded head coaches are able to work with less and still make it good. Eberflus was working with less and making it worse. My opinion, you have to let go of that coaching staff. Chicago has currently projected right now the 1st and 2nd pick in this upcoming draft. I'm a big Justin Fields believer. I'm not going to deny it. If he has a bad game, he has a bad game. I'll be the first one to get on him for that. But if he continues to keep up this play, doing what he did against Denver, should Chicago keep him or are they still going to go with Caleb Williams, the unanimous number 1 overall pick? I love to hear what my audience thinks. Of course, I appreciate y'all, appreciate your participation in this podcast, all my subscribers, those of you who have followed me on social media. And if you haven't already, just go on any social media device or app. Type in ThatsTextbookSports, click the profile with the purple words and the football, the basketball, the soccer ball. Click follow. Turn on post notifications. You don't want to miss any of the content I have. But getting back to the question. If Justin Fields keeps his play up, do you trade him? Or do you keep him? Or do you go for Caleb? Let me know in the comments what y'all think. Now, before I get into this next segment, just had to let y'all know, follow me on social media, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter. Type in the search bar, That's Textbook Sports. Click the profile, click follow, like this video, subscribe, turn on all post notifications, you hit the bell. Thank you. So we've been through 4 weeks of the NFL season, and everyone loves rankings. By the time now, we should understand who's a contender, who's a pretender. So here are my 10 teams. Let's break it down. Number 1, the San Francisco 49ers. Not much more needs to be said about the 49ers. The offense is electric. Purdy is doing just enough and much more. McCaffrey is playing at an MVP type level. The defense is fantastic. They're number 1 for right now. Number 2, the Philadelphia Eagles. It hasn't looked pretty for Philadelphia, but they found ways to win football games. Now, they do have a tough schedule later on in the season, but with that overall roster, you like what they've done so far. They've won their football games, won a lot of close ones. They're at the 2 spot right now. Third, the Buffalo Bills. They had an impressive showing. That defense is flipping the script from last year where we were kind of saying they're soft in the trenches. That's what the Bengals were able to do whatever they wanted to in the run game. This year, that defense has flipped the script. We all know it and expect the offense to be flying high and on an elite level. They're third for me right now. Fourth is the Dallas Cowboys. They've dominated some really teams like the New York Giants, the New York Jets, and the New England Patriots, whose offenses are really bad. But that defense, in my opinion, is the best in the league. And you like the overall pieces that they have. Right now, they're sitting at the 4 spot. Got a big game, a big test against San Fran to see if they're on the same level with some of these other teams. Fifth, the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the best defense Patrick Mahomes has had in his pro days, in his career. It's just offensively, he doesn't. This is, I would say, one of the worst collections of weapons he's had in his time in Kansas City. Now, maybe they make a trade before the deadline to get a star wide receiver and someone opposite of Kelsey. We don't know, but as it currently stands right now, how they've looked, who they've played, they're at the 5 spot. Now, sixth is the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson is playing like he used to, playing like the way he did in 2019. That secondary, really injured and banged up. So on paper, you don't see much depth with that secondary. But on the field, they've shown out. They did beat a Cleveland Browns team who was starting a rookie quarterback in his first ever career start. Nonetheless, who they've played, how well they've looked, they deserve to be in that 6th spot. Now, dropping down significantly is the Miami Dolphins. They had a comeback to earth game versus the Buffalo Bills. That offense is still great and fantastic. You worry about who's their second corner going to be. You want to get Jalen Ramsey back as soon as possible. But you saw what Buffalo did. They it just out-muscled Miami. Tons of physicality, specifically in the trenches. And then you saw how Buffalo was able to pick on Miami's corners. Right now, Dolphins at 7. And then 8th, maybe to some people's surprise, but I don't think it should be, the Detroit Lions. That defense, and specifically that defensive line, is coming together. Aiden Hutchinson is playing at a Defensive Player of the Year type of level. The Lions' offensive line is fantastic. They have a lot of young talent in Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery's doing fantastic. Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, another rookie. So tons of young talent. If they can just stick to the script, what they like, which is running the football and going into play action, playing to Jared Goff's skill sets, this team can make a deep run in the postseason. Right now, I have them at 8th, which is 4th among the NFC teams. 9th, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That defense is really good. The defensive line is really, really, really good. Baker Mayfield might have found himself a home, and he's playing really well. Right now, I've got the Buccaneers at 9. Then 10th is the Seattle Seahawks. Now, they're really iffy at tackle. They have their 2 starting tackles out. That's worrisome when you consider the teams above them have really dominant defenses and defensive lines. Nonetheless, how they've played, the collections of weapons that Geno Smith has, Kenneth Walker, the young defensive talent that they have, Devon Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, really solid. I have them at 10. So those are your 10 best teams in the NFL. Let me know in the comments who you think should move up, who needs to move down. I appreciate all of your participation. One of the most interesting storylines for me so far this season has been how well the rookies have stepped onto the playing field and made themselves household names in the NFL. And names to remember. Reading off the list, starting off with CJ Stroud, Christian Gonzalez, Bijan Robinson, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua, Zay Flowers, Anthony Richardson, Devon Witherspoon, Devon Achane, and of course Jalen Carter. Now for CJ Stroud, he's looking to create, or not create, but repeat that lineage of a quarterback in the AFC, young, becomes a superstar. Same thing with Anthony Richardson. He's looked really good so far. Of course, with a rookie, any rookie, there's going to be growing pains in year one, and it's going to be a process. That's what it's been with Anthony, but he's performed really well in the games that he's played in. Only thing is he's got to protect himself. In 2 of the games that he's played in so far, he's been out for the game with injuries. If he protects himself, you've got something really special. Christian Gonzalez, looking to be that Darrelle Revis type of corner where you put him on an island and you know he's going to take away the opposing team's number one option. He's going to shut down half the field. Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, we're talking about the best running backs in football. It's Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson. The slight edge goes to McCaffrey just with what his body of work is, what he's done in his career, and how he's playing so far this year. When usually running backs who are at his age should not be putting up the type of numbers he's putting up. Then Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, Puka Nacua is on a historic pace, and I think he can still keep it up even with Cooper Kupp returning back. Brian Branch, as I mentioned, playing great, making plays everywhere. Sam Laporta becoming a top tight end, a tight end 1. Zay Flowers having his moments. Devon Witherspoon had his breakout game versus the Giants, 2 sacks, a pick 6 on Monday Night Football. So this is interesting to me because I think we're seeing the next wave of elite talent, stars and superstars before our eyes. And that to me has always been something to watch closely. Because, it's the NFL and everyone does age, so you have these guys who, we've been watching for quite some time. Then eventually they start to go down. They pass the torch on to the next guy. Really interesting for me to see, and to see the young talent that is just going into the NFL and from day one making an impact. Something you'd love to see, and it just means it's going to be great football, and the future of the league is in good hands. Now, with that being said, that concludes this podcast episode. Appreciate all my listeners, everyone that's subscribed, everyone that's followed me on all my social media platforms. Appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. I want y'all to know, what type of content should I be talking about? Should I be talking about this one team, or do you want me to talk about the 5 worst teams in the NFL, the best teams in the NFL, some storylines from historic college football seasons, a historic NBA season like the one in 2016, rewind back? Let me know in the comments. This is a podcast for y'all, for the audience. Thank y'all. And once again, don't forget to follow me on social media, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter. Type in That's Textbook Sports in the search bar. Click the profile, click follow, share this video, be a friend, tell a friend. Thank y'all. Take care. Have a fantastic day. God bless. And until next time,